Hello everybody, it's Tim here again, here with another review, this time for Chucky, Season 2, Episode 7. Now I'll just go ahead and say, as far as this episode goes, as far as like this season and everything goes, as far as this episode goes, I'd give it a 2.5 out of 4. I thought this episode was alright. It was an alright time killer. Ultimately, I had fun with it. It was fine. Most of the episode is just like a parody of The Exorcist. You got Devon Sawa's character here, who they actually finally kill off at the end of this, and I'll say this, I was starting to like his priest character. For most of the season, he's just kind of been combative, but you get the idea towards the end that he's actually gay or whatever when he's in a confessional booth confessing to the nun and all that. And that's the reason he's been so hard on the kids and so judgmental and everything, because they remind him of himself, I guess. But he gets to be the priest. You get like a scene where he's suiting up and he's showing off, his, I guess, his somewhat toned physique, which I thought was funny. Devon Sawa does a good job here acting-wise, and when he's the priest and everything, and he's like doing the exorcism on the doll so they can take out Chucky's spirit and send it to hell, so the Chucky Prime that's inside Nika or whatever can get transferred into um, the into the doll. That's pretty much the deal, and then Nika can be back to normal. And then you got Jennifer Tilly like running around as Tiffany with Glenn and all that. And she's got Tiffany in the back seat with her, and that doll ends up escaping and like running out because she wants to switch. She says she needs to switch back into a Belle doll. So she says specifically that she has to go back inside like one of the Tiffany dolls, from Bride and Chucky, which is kind of weird that she specifically has to use that doll because I don't think that's ever been stated in the series at all in any of these movies. Like Don Mancini, he's a good, competent writer, but he's not a great writer. He's constantly contradicted the voodoo mythology in these movies and show, which that was all created by Tom Holland, but that was such a basic thing. You didn't really need to overcomplicate it. And he feels like he keeps overcomplicating this voodoo mythology that should be like really simple, just Chucky trying to get a body, and he just keeps just adding new elements to it that don't really need to be there. But the Jennifer Tilly who's inside the Tiffany doll gets away out of the back seat, runs off and just randomly gets hit by a truck, so she just gets completely rode out. And I know why Don Mancini did that. It's because he's trying to shock the audience, like, oh, you thought Jennifer Tilly would be important, the one inside the doll, the real one. But, lo and behold, shocking death she's took out. He's done this multiple times in the series. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Here, it's just like, well, complete waste of time bringing her back, so whatever. In a way, it was kind of a neat thing where it was shocking, but at the same time, it's a complete waste of the character. So there was no point in her. And this season really feels like because Don Mancini brought the Glenn and Glenda characters back, that he's really trying to make this season like a huge tribute to Seed of Chucky. Problem is, Seed of Chucky is dog shit. That's a terrible film, and the fact that he's trying to make this more in tone with the wackiness of Seed of Chucky, especially for these last few episodes, it's not working. The wackiness is wearing thin. This episode probably isn't much worse or much weaker than the last episode or the episode before that, which I thought were both average. They were both good. They were both fine. But the wackiness is just kind of wearing out at this point. This is basically like an extended version of Seed of Chucky, but it's in shorter bursts because the episodes are shorter than the movie, so it's not as bad, and the humor is more palpable that way. It's not as in your face and horrible to get through. But yeah, overall, this was an alright episode. They do the exorcism on Chucky. Devon Sawa was pretty cool, doing like the power of Christ compels you, and they're all saying it at the same time and everything. And I did like it when Chucky said, "Your mother sucks cocks in hell." That was a funny callback. When he's like floating up in the air, like the Exorcist shit, Linda Blair chick from the original movie. That was a little much. And then he his spirit flies out of the doll and into the priest, and the priest is like fighting him off, and then it causes him to explode. Cool death, but there's like no explanation whatsoever for why the priest explodes. It's because the priest is a holy man, and Chucky's spirit is inside of his body, so it just blows up. I mean, what? It doesn't really make much sense. But anyway, she, the Chucky that's inside Nika gets transferred out into the doll, which Nika's talking about at the end, like how she wants to finally live her life and go see a movie and all that. I'm like, you're still a fugitive. The police are still going to be after you because they think you killed people and escaped from a mental institution. You're still going to be on the run for the rest of your existence. So it's like, you're not getting a win here, really. And, the old chick who's like Dr. Mixture or whatever, they still have not explained why she's on Chucky's side, why she's obsessed with Chucky, why she's like so protective of Charles Lee Ray. It's almost like she's a cult fan or cult member or something. They never explain. They have not explained it at all. It's almost like Don Mancini just threw the character in because he wanted a twist or something to prolong the series and something the audience didn't see coming. But he really has no explanation for why this character's here. or why she's obsessed with Chucky, but she's running off with the doll that now has Charles Lee Ray inside of it. And Andy, I like how Andy just runs out and just like blasts the doll like multiple times and blows its brains out and kills it. Yeah, but he just like lets the old woman run off. I was surprised at that because she's obviously dangerous. He realistically, I figured Andy would have just like shot her in the back. With it, how obsessive he is about taking Chucky out, didn't really make much sense to me that he would just let her run off. The crazy nun chick who thinks Chucky's like Jesus or whatever shows back up, and she's holding the blonde girl hostage, Lexi, and the Glenda girl that picks up a knife and slings it, and stabs her in the eye. Kind of a cool death, but ultimately her character was kind of pointless. The evil nun chick was. Of course, they're playing up like the whole Glenda thing of like hinting at, will she give in to her dark side? Will she eventually become a killer or whatever? They're kind of hinting at it a little bit, but she seems like pretty much a decent person. Um, but with a little bit of that killer Chucky instinct. You get to the end, you got um, Glenn showing up with Tiffany and Jennifer. Showing up with Jennifer Tilly as Tiffany or whatever inside of her body, and she's like trying to tell Nika, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry," and of course Nika jerks up the gun and blow her brains out. Glenn jumps in the way, he gets shot, and then they run off together with the mom, Glenn and Glenda do, to go save the mom. Which I'm like, why? I don't understand why Jennifer Tilly is still in the show. She's like got her own side plot, but this character could have been killed off like a whole season ago, or a whole half episodes ago. There's really no reason to still keep her here. She's not really adding anything. I guess maybe Don Mancini has plans for her in the final episode. What it obviously seems like it's hinting at is that they're finally going to have Jennifer Tilly transfer her soul into one of those Belle dolls or whatever, one of those Tiffany dolls, and that's what they're going to do, get Jennifer Tilly back in the doll form and just have her back as a murderous doll. The Glenn is bleeding out or whatever, he's been shot, which that makes me believe that they're going to transfer Glenn's soul back into the Glenn doll, and that's what they're going to do, because Tiffany has the doll with her, the Glenn doll, in the back of the vehicle. So that makes me feel like that's where that's going. That way the actress who's playing Glenn and Glenda won't have to play two separate characters. And they can just limit it to one and just let her do the voice of the Glenn doll. Which, I'm not sure you need that. I'm not really sure you need to put Glenn back in the doll. I mean, if they were going to do that, I would have been fine if they just like fused Glenn and Glenda back together and just put them back in the doll. That would have been fine with me. But yeah, Jennifer Tilly is obviously going to go back into the Tiffany Belle doll, at least in the final episode at some point. Or that'll be like where we see her character is at in the final episode after this one, and that way we'll know where she's going to be in season 3 when it comes. But yeah, you get to the ending, and the old lady or whatever who's the doctor, the psychiatrist, is like driving in her car and like laughing maniacally, like, haha. You get flashbacks of her talking to Devin Sawa, the priest. Why she's confessing to him, I have no idea, where she's like, I found the secret to eternal life, and she's like laughing, kind of like Chucky, so it's almost like Chucky has like entered her body somehow, which, I don't know, maybe they'll explain that. So I guess that's what it's going to be. That's going to be the explanation for how there's another Chucky when they do the final episode, is that he's in the doctor's body somehow, and it's going to transfer his soul into a Chucky doll after this, and he's going to go after the kids for revenge in the final episode, which is supposed to be a Christmas episode. Having it be on Christmas is fun, but that's worthy of like a whole season by itself, having a Chucky Christmas themed idea is. Um, I hope they explain if it is Chucky inside the psychiatrist woman or whatever, Dr. Mixture. I hope they actually explain that, how he got there. I'm sure they will. I hope. Or Don Mancini is kind of getting to the point where it's like Steve Chucky, where he's writing stuff just specifically for gags, just to have gags, but with like really no explanation behind them. So I am starting to get afraid that if it is Chucky inside of her, that Mancini just won't explain it at all. He'll just be like, oh, he just somehow got there. Who cares? I don't know. But yeah, overall, this was an alright episode. It was fine. It was an alright time killer. I didn't mind it. Didn't really like it, but I didn't hate it. It's just kind of the Don Mancini gag type stuff going on this season is wearing thin. I hope when we get to season 3, it's much more horror focused again, and that he's not continuing the dumbness of Seed of Chucky. But yeah, overall, this was alright. It was fine. It was harmless. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again.